For those who haven't been playing Hearthstone for a while, how many keywords are coming in the Witchwood and how do they work?
Well, first I would say that if you haven't been playing Hearthstone in a while, this is the best time to jump in to play Hearthstone. This is the start of a new standard year, and so there are several sets rotating to be exclusive to Wild, so you just need less cards to jump in now than any other point in the year. And we have our new single-player monster hunts, which are totally free and super fun, so I just recommend coming and trying all that stuff. The collectible cards I'm also really excited about. We have a couple new keywords. Probably the biggest one is Echo. And Echo cards, you can play them as many times as you want as long as you have the mana, so they're hyper flexible. For example, there's a new card called Phantom Militia, which is a 2/4 taunt minion. Costs 3 mana, which is maybe a little bit worse than you might hope to get for 3 mana, but you could play it on turn 3 if you need to, or you could wait till turn 6 and play it twice, or you can wait till turn 9 and play it 3 times for 9 mana, and then it sets a huge wall of taunt minions for you. And that flexibility means that it's a great card to draw late in the game, and it's great to draw early in the game, which very few cards have that level of flexibility.
Are there cards with Echo that are like tanky?
Well, yeah, the interesting thing about Echo is that you can kind of use a huge use it as like a huge output to have a big minion or a lot of big minions, or you can just have a small effect. So Phantom Militia has taunt, so it will protect you even if it's just 1 minion, or if you play 3, it's really effective at protecting you. It's also really good at completing the Warrior Quest, right? The Warrior Quest requires you to play 7 taunt minions. Well, Phantom Militia can act as 3 of those taunt minions because you can play it 3 times for just the 1 card.
I'm completely jaw drop with the Jeng Remain card, considering Echo and Raj. How can that card synergize with combos?
Well, one of the really cool things about Gan is he makes your hero power cost 1, right? And a 1 cost hero power, we balance them to be 2 costs. So being able to make sure you're guaranteed to have a 1 mana 1/1 on turn 1 with the Paladin hero power when it costs 1 is very strong. Any cards that would care about having Silverhand recruits, for example, in a Paladin deck would be quite excited to pump out 1/1s at the cheaper rate. But there's a lot of really interesting ways to use their hero powers. For example, Shaman totems for 1 mana seems pretty crazy to me. Working in extra damage against enemy hero with the Hunter hero power while you're playing other cards. You could try and play a kind of a control style Hunter deck that just tries to weaken the opponent while playing defense and controlling the board. Just getting 2 damage in every turn just for that 1 mana. Seems like that could be an effective way to play Hunter. I think there's a lot of really interesting strategies. That's one of the cool things about the Odd and Even Legendaries is that there's really 18 new deck archetypes. There's Odd Shaman and Even Shaman. There's Odd Warlock and Even Warlock. And understanding which of those 2 is going to be more viable and then which of all the decks are going to be viable. There's 18 archetypes to explore, and I think it's really exciting.
You're at the office. The team is pitching ideas, and the Witchwood comes up. How did you come up and choose the Witchwood as the next expansion?
Well, it actually kind of evolved over time. Like, we started out knowing that we want to do something about Worgen. Worgen are awesome. We were really excited to explore what the transformation mechanic would look like in Hearthstone. So we tried a bunch of different things there, and we ended up on the one we're shipping, which is that every turn in your hand they swap forms, and so you really have to wait for the right turn to get the maximum value. But we didn't know which direction to take Worgen, right? We could have gone the classic Victorian Gothic style Worgen. We thought about going maybe kind of a murder mystery vibe where there's some kind of detective clue solving element to the set. But we ended up going in a different direction, which is we really grew the forest outside of Gilneas into this spooky, creepy forest where Hagatha the Witch resides. She's been twisting the trees and the animals to be especially dangerous. And whereas once the Worgen felt safe outside of their city, now they're feeling surrounded and endangered. Of course, the Worgen are essentially werewolves, so they're able to fight back effectively. But this monster versus monster battle is super exciting to us, and we started pivoting away from Gilneas. It's a core part of the set, but pushing the focus even more into the Witchwood that surrounds it and into the conflict between the forces of evil and the forces of good.
Now that we are talking about the Worgen, is there a chance that we are going to see the main character of Curse of the Worgen graphic novel?
City in there. We got Tess Screaming. She's a major part of the set. We got Darius Crowley. He's in there, and a lot of the characters from the introductory starting experience of the Worgen. The whole team read through Curse of the Worgen, the comic books I think that you're referencing, and had a ton of fun thinking of cards to add. We added the Druid of the Scythe. She's got the Scythe of Elune in there, and it was fun to kind of re-get into all that lore and think about our favorite characters and steep ourselves in the fantasy of the Worgen for this set.
From what little you had shown the website about the Witchwood, out of those 135 cards, there is an elephant in the room. Are there more than one witch card, or do we see any in the monster hunt? Is it like a coven of witches?
There is a prime witch, which is Hagatha. She is the witch in the Witchwood. She's running the scene. She's twisting the forest and the creatures, the spiders and the wolves and the thing that resides in the forest. She's twisting those and using them against the citizens of Gilneas. There are more witch-type creatures. We just announced Countess Ashmore, who's somewhat witch-like, but Hagatha is the witch that rules everything.
Are the witches related in any way with the witches of Drosbor in World of Warcraft?
No, they're not. We, Hagatha's an orc shaman. She's like an orc dark shaman. She's the shaman new hero card in the set, and she's kind of all about evolving and twisting things to transform them into her own servants. So she just kind of works a little differently than that stuff.
Emeris is one of the Witchwood cards. Are other Emerald Nightmare creatures and dragons represented in the Witchwood, and how do they synergize with other dragon deck cards and the new keywords?
There's a ton of dragons in the set. We really wanted to focus on kind of swamp dragons or dragons that have been hanging out in the Witchwood and so have been twisted by Hagatha for evil. So there's a lot of green dragons that are in these swamps, and she's been using them. A lot of those are in the Hunter class, so the Hunter's got a lot of new dragons in this set. There's also several new neutral cards that synergize very well with dragons that give you a benefit for holding a dragon in your hand. So I think that there's going to be some new options for dragon decks, and some of them, like one of the new cards, Scale Worm, if you're holding a dragon, he gets +1 attack and a rush, which is one of the new keywords in the set that lets you attack enemy minions immediately. So it really helps you get back in the game, gives you a lot of control, makes you feel powerful, and I think that'll be a fun thing to play with for whoever's making new dragon decks in the new set.
Other than Worgen, Human Gilneans, Ghost, and Black Cats, are there Horde Forsaken, other type of Horde cards? What else can we find hiding and scheming in the Witchwoods?
There are a lot of creepy things. We definitely have some Forsaken pirates who are in the set, and some other ghostly pirates. It was really fun to kind of think of what are things that scare us, and maybe some things that are not the normal things. One of the characters in the set is a doll maker, but he makes creepy dolls, and he it's super disturbing. But he created a doll and then sewed his own eye into the doll so he could see as the doll runs around. So it's we have that level of kind of disturbing, scary stuff. It's still Hearthstone, it's still charming, but we definitely wanted to make sure it delivered on the fantasy of a scary forest. That this is the kind of stories that you tell your kids so they don't wander off into the forest at night. This is that come to life in the Witchwood.
There is another card that disturbs my sleep, a priest card. Can you guess? The Lady in White. Costs 5 mana and is battle cry, cast Inner Fire on every minion in your deck. Set attack equal to health. How do you balance something like this? I can hear the crowd saying, nerf, nerf, nerf.
Well, we have a team of super high-level Hearthstone players who play a ton of games of these cards before they launch, and they're definitely been playing a lot of these. One of the things about Lady in White is she's very interesting. You build your deck pretty differently, right? Mogashan Warden, who traditionally is not been a very good card, something looks pretty interesting when it's a 4-mana 7/7 with taunt after you play Lady in White. So I think it's an interesting deck building challenge to use that card. So you might have to make some different choices in deck building, and then when you do, I think it pays off big, which is exciting.
There's another card, Coffin Crusher. Death Rattle is summon a Death Rattle minion for your hand. When will you use this card, and how will you combo it with your Death Rattle deck?
Well, in a Death Rattle deck, obviously you want, especially if you're trying to complete the Priest quest, you just want a lot of Death Rattle minions, enough to make sure that you complete the Priest quest in time so that you're able to heal yourself back up to 40. So he's a great Death Rattle minion. You really would like to combo him in a way that gets you a lot of value. So someone like Karen Bloodhoof or Obsidian Statue seems like a great card to pair with the Coffin Crusher. And so you can either just put him into a deck and play all your cheap Death Rattle minions so he pulls a big one, or you can force it so you're really only playing cards that would be insane to pull with Coffin Crusher, and to make sure that you're getting one of those guys when his Death Rattle triggers.
The Witchwood has a lot of cards that are either, if your deck has only even cost cards or odd cost cards, how was this designed for balance purposes, and what potential plays might happen with these cards and special combos?
Well, it's definitely a tricky balance problem, right? Because there's not a lot of numbers that matter that you can change. So you can't say, well, okay, if it's 75% even cost or something like that. It's just, is it all even or is it not? And then you get one cost or two cost. I mean, there's not that many levers to pull here. So one thing that we could do was make the minions a little bit worse or better. But if you don't draw the minion anyway, it doesn't really matter. That's not going to have an effect on the game. So we kind of just tried it and ended up feeling really good. Obviously, it's a significant sacrifice to not play with half of the cards that we've made. So, we had to make sure that these upsides were worth it and that it was exciting enough that you'd be willing to significantly nerf your deck to get these benefits. And I think it turned out pretty well. I'm very excited to see which combos work better than others. One of the great combos I think we're excited about is Odd Warrior. And Odd Warrior means you're playing with only odd cost cards, and Baku will upgrade your hero power at the start of the game to Tank Up, which is 2 mana, gain 4 armor instead of the normal 2 armor. And with the Warrior quest, which is an odd cost card, and it starts in your hand, you can start the game off with the Warrior quest. You follow it up with Tank Up, and then you start slamming huge top minions turn after turn. Backed up by Tank Up, it means your opponent's going to have a really hard time killing you, and then you activate the Warrior quest and start doming your opponent with Ragnaros' hero power. And that's been a super fun deck for us to play test, and I think it might be powerful.
I'm kind of wondering now with this kind of design, when you have a card that lets you choose from 3 cards, and I chose the even cost card, and I choose one that is odd from those 3. What happens?
It only checks at the very start of the game. So actually that's a great way to help make sure that you have something to play on those odd turns. If you're playing an even cost deck, is that you discover a card with an odd cost, and then you can weave that in elegantly. There's another kind of component here, which is that if you have even cost cards and a 1-cost hero power, you can use that to fill in those odd turns as well. And if you don't have to play on turn 2 with the odd deck, obviously your hero power is much better than it normally would be, and so that's totally fine. So already that stuff is mitigated, but Discover effects also help you mitigate that in an interesting way.
Another potentially insane card is Baku, the Moon Eater. Start the game. If your deck has only odd cost cards, upgrade your hero power. What do you mean with upgrade hero power, and does it stay upgraded for only that turn or for the entire game?
So there was a card in the Grand Tournament that had called Justicar Trueheart that said Battlecry, upgrade your hero power, and this is the same upgrade that is Baku's using. So it essentially doubles the power of the hero power. For example, the Warrior hero power will go to 2 mana, gain 4 armor instead of 2 armor, gain 2 armor. The Mage hero power usually deals 1 damage. An upgraded version deals 2 damage. The Paladin hero power usually summons a single 1/1 minion. The upgraded version will summon 2 1/1 minions. So it's a significant power increase, and it lasts the entire game.
Let's move on to the Monster Hunt. How many missions or encounters are there in total in the Monster Hunt?
I actually don't know the exact number, but it's comparable to the dungeon runs, which had 48 encounters. It's enough that you will very likely never see all of them. There's some rare fights and some more common ones. Given there's 4 different heroes to take through the Monster Hunt, I think it's going to be super exciting, and players are going to see something different every time.
You revealed 4 unique heroes: Tracker, Cannoneer, Houndmaster, and Time Tinker. What are their decks composed of, and what are their hero power?
Well, I want to leave some surprises for when the set launches, but I'll say that The starting decks are intentionally somewhat weak, or they at least give you a baseline so you can choose to go in a lot of different directions. The fun part about these like Hearthstone roguelike experiences is that they're really fun to replay. Like doing it over and over again should be really exciting because it's different each time, and so what you choose really change when it ends up in your deck. Some of the ones I'll talk about is the Cannoneer is really interesting. It starts with a cannon in the battlefield, and the hero power is fire the cannon, and the cannon will shoot whatever's directly across from it. So you really want to position the cannon using your other minions into the perfect spot to deal the maximum damage. A lot of the treasures in the Monster Hunt will upgrade your cannon in interesting ways. And I think that's going to be a really super fun way to play. Super different than a character like Toki Time Tinker. Now, some of her effects are random, like Arcane Missiles or Kabbalist's Tome, but her hero power is 0 mana, restart the turn. So if you don't like some of the random targets that have happened or results, you get another chance at it. And I think that's also going to be really unique and fun to play.
Is there some kind of achievement or reward for completing the Monster Hunt with all 4 unique heroes?
So when you defeat the Monster Hunt with one of the heroes, you get a pack. So there's 4 packs available through all 4 of those heroes. And then once you defeat it with all 4, we unlock a special finale where all 4 heroes team up to defeat Hagatha. And if you can defeat Hagatha, you get a unique card back.
Why do you feel that 2-class legendaries is a good model compared to just one in previous sets?
Yeah, in the past we did 1 class legendary for each class, and we had a lot more neutral legendaries. And the reason I think it's better to do 2 class legendaries is that neutral legendaries, there's some risks. If you make them very powerful and not very niche, then every game feels a little bit samey. You're just always facing the exact same cards no matter what class you're playing against. I think that's one of the big risks of imbalance or overpoweredness of neutral cards is the game feels the same every time you play. You really want the game to feel different every time you play it. And so having the most powerful cards be class cards or very niche cards like, hey, this is not just a shaman card, it's a battle cry shaman card or an elemental shaman card or whatever it is. Well, now you just don't see it. Even if you're playing shaman every game, you're not seeing the exact same cards, so they're playing different builds of shaman. So having a large variety of niche cards, I think, is better for the game than having a fewer number of cards that are played that are of a higher power level and neutral. So we just have to be careful of that. And the other flip side of that coin is that if we don't make them very niche, then we have to, I think, make them pretty bad so that we don't end up in the scenario like Dr. Boom, where every person at every rank is playing Dr. Boom and it's all you see. So that's just a risk we have to watch out for. And I think the 2 class legendaries makes that much easier because we don't have to deal with 5 neutral legendaries. We can make them very niche, very exciting. And then the class legendaries can be a little bit less niche because they're more inherently niche because they can only be used by 1/9 of classes.
One last question. What are the top features of the Witchwood that you are the most excited about and why?
Well, I'm really excited about actually Rush, which is one of the new keywords in the set. It lets you attack minions immediately. It gives you the feeling of that power and ability to get back in the game that Charge does. But just kind of selfishly, it makes it easier for us to design cards and makes the games more fun because Charge can sometimes be used to kill your opponent in 1 turn in a very uninteractive way. And Rush, it doesn't have that downside. You can get right into the game and attack, but you can't go face. You can't attack the enemy hero. And so that lets your opponent have some time to react. It means they're going to make cards that have much higher stats than a Charge minion would normally be able to get. But it has all the fun of being able to attack immediately.